Riverside. All right, the jazzy intro. It's the Two Chumps Football Podcast. He's Emil and I'm Chad Wilson. Happy to be here with you. Sponsored by Bovada Sportsbook. All of you guys that think you know what's going to happen this NFL and college football season, head over to the folks at Bovada. They are waiting for all of your salary that you're going to lay down and donate to those folks. Unless you are tuned in with us each and every week during this football season, because quite frankly, Emil, if we duplicate any portion of what we did last year, we're going to have some very rich listeners.
Yeah, we make sure you don't lose your house, and you might even put a new roof on it when we're done.
I mean, your wife might fall in love with you all over again, but that's us. Just here, a couple of chumps talking football here on the podcast. On the show today, a former, could have been Hall of Fame coach is suing one of the former schools that he coached for. There's some salaries in sports that are out of control. We've got to get to that. That and several other things coming up here on the show. So, Emil, have at it. What's going on?
So, the NCAA, every time we do one of these podcasts in the off season, because, we're weekly, bi-weekly, because, we'd be doing a lot of the same topics, because every week the NCAA is getting sued by someone. They are like...
I hope they have great lawyers, yes.
Yeah, they are the target of lawsuits. And now... former LSU coach Les Miles is at it. Les wants his 37 wins back. He wants, he apparently, and I didn't know this, they vacated 37 of his wins. I believe they were between 2012 and 2015. It was over a lineman that got improper benefits. But the reason Les wants his wins back is you need a 600 winning percentage. That's 60% for those of you struggling math, of your games that you coached in to be eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame. And, let's be honest, he's probably a Hall of Fame coach, right? I mean...
I don't know. I think he's borderline, I guess.
He won a couple national championships, right? He had two. I'm trying to think.
I think he did end up winning two. I think he won one of the most boring... I don't know which one of those guys won.
2007 one. That was the team that had two losses. That was an oddity back then.
Yeah, and I think the championship game was 6-3 or 3-2.
It was
2-1.
It wasn't exciting. And then he was the coach of the. I'm trying to think of the second one. Was he the Joe Burrow coach?
No, that was Ogeron. That was Ogeron. Maybe if you go to LSU and you're the head coach, you're going to win a national championship.
Did he only win one?
I think that's why I'm saying he's borderline.
Yeah, Nick won the shared championship.
Nick won one. Miles won one. Ed Ogeron. Go Tigers.
So
how could you forget Go Tigers?
Bottom line is he's got 174 wins, I believe it is, if he has all his wins, and he's...
It's my understanding, Emil, that even with those 37 wins, he's working on a roundup thing. I think it's like 59.6.
No, I saw the percentage. He's over 60 with the 37 wins.
Is he? Okay, so taking the 37
well over. So the bigger issue I have with all this, and I've been on this literally for 15 years. I mean, because I found it to be obscene when it happened to my school, when they took away Bush's Heisman, vacated USC's 14 wins. It was ridiculous with the Paterno issue at Penn State. Aside from the fact in that case that Joe Paterno was not the guy in the showers, okay? Regardless, okay? You won the games. And this just highlights something that I find absolutely preposterous by the NCAA is when you penalize a school, you're already lowering their win total going forward because you're taking away scholarships, you're taking away bowl appearances and everything else, visits. So the wins are going to fix themselves on the field because they're going to win less by design.
Yeah.
To go back and tell me something didn't happen that I saw, it'd be like saying, the Eagles Super Bowl where they lost to the Chiefs and then, Bradbury had the hold. Okay, and maybe the Eagles could have got the ball back. the NFL's got video now that shows he didn't hold him. The jersey flew in the air. You know what? We're declaring it a tie. The game is a tie.
I've been with you on that over the years. This isn't the first time that you've said this.
No.
I don't want you to take away Heisman trophies. I don't want you to tell me Reggie Bush wasn't the best football player in college football that year. Please don't insult my intelligence like that. Please don't tell me Oklahoma or whoever. Don't tell me. Don't vacate wins for SMU. You know what? NCAA, be a little bit more preventative in what it is that you do. But okay, just penalize the guys going forward. Let's stop vacating wins and all of that nonsense. So I would say give Les Miles his wins back. Second of all, what did they do that wasn't being done at Alabama, Ohio State, or Michigan, or anywhere else in the country where you have to compete, or you know what? They put you out the door. The media jumps all over your head if you're not winning at some of these programs, LSU being one of them. You are, and your fan base wants you out the door. This is basically survival. Okay. If we think we've got a clean game, then all right, you also feel like none of those guys on the bodybuilding stage are on steroids. And you really believe that wrestling is real. Come on already. Let's cut this whole thing out. Give Les Miles his wins back. But then, from what I understand, also none of the three schools that he coached at, Kansas, Oklahoma State, or LSU, nominated him for the college football.
No, but I mean, to me, that's for me, when I read the story, that was the secondary issue because, like, you had a great point. When I really broke it down, I'm realizing, yeah, he had one national championship. He's probably a borderline Hall of Fame coach. The bigger issue to me is the absurdity in the way, like, take any of these schools. You mentioned SMU. Miami had it. USC. By virtue of any penalties that were given to those schools, some of them wrongly, I believe, but whatever, they won far less games over the next 5 to 10 years.
They've struggled. Every one of those programs have struggled going forward since those things have happened.
So you corrected your record books because by virtue of the penalties, their winning percentages dipped for a decade or more in SMU's case.
Mm-hmm.
You can't,
and those schools are highly incentivized to not do those things again.
And other schools see it. So you can't go change history. You can't go say, it's kind of like the old.
You're going to tell me Eric Dickerson didn't play for SMU and run for all those
yards? All over the place. I mean, it was like the greatest interview ever was when one of them that I like because it pertained to my school. Barry Switzer, who I'm a big fan of. Not a great NFL coach, but hilarious as a college coach and interview, and a very good college coach. They asked Barry. Now Barry's in his early 80s now, but this is back when SC decked them and the penalties came out, and they said, Barry, how do you feel about this? USC's only going to get the AP national championship. Do you think Oklahoma should share the because they didn't know what they were going to do with the vacated BCS title? Barry said, man, I was in the Orange Bowl that night. They hung 55 on it.
I mean, it was an epic beatdown. Let's not act like that didn't happen. Whatever.
I don't know. That's all I really got on it.
Give old man Les his wins back.
I think Les should have his wins back. You're probably right. I'm wrong. He's a borderline Hall of Fame coach.
I did ask this question on my Gridiron Stud show. Would you, if you could only pick one, who would you put in the Hall of Fame? Would you put Les Miles, or would you put? I know we had this whole discussion on Les Miles. I don't have Mike Leach's record in front of us, but Mike Leach or Les Miles, which one of those guys would you put?
You're gonna laugh at this. I would put Leach, and I'll tell you why. He's going to be more memorable in the history of college football because a lot of the concepts that different teams are running still today are off that Mike Leach tree.
Yeah, and I lean more in that direction. I would say Mike Leach, though he has no title and probably never would have won one if he coached another 10 years, just wasn't that kind of deal. But yeah, he turned programs that weren't supposed to be winners into perennial winners. I mean, he didn't. Yeah, and I mean, he didn't go undefeated, but like you wouldn't have a bad year really with Mike Leach. And like you said, a lot of what we see going on today is from the Mike Leach playbook.
I mean, Lincoln Riley's off the Mike Leach tree. I mean, all the concepts, and he's been, he's what, 40 years old. He's been coaching now 7 years. He's near the top of his profession for a guy that's 40 years old. He's from the Mike Leach coaching.
And there's several others,
Yeah,
so
there's a lot of them.
I would put him there. And also along that note, talking to a friend of mine who thinks that Lane Kiffin will leave Ole Miss. And one of the potential spots that he would go to, he's been rumored for this job in the past, but one of the potential spots he'll go to, as everyone expects them to have a not so hot season, is Florida. And on me personally, I think that would be a tragic move by Lane Kiffin. Just from a career standpoint, I don't see Lane Kiffin as a championship coach. You and I think we've talked about this before.
Yes.
He could go to a program where they're not pressed to win national championships, and the fan base and those in attendance each and every week can be entertained. It's an entertaining brand of football that he brings. I just don't think there's that championship element there. In particular, that these teams just don't play defense, but just
even
overall.
Even if you fix the defense and you say, Lane has an epiphany and he goes and grabs the best coordinator and they fix it. Because let's be honest, usually his offenses are good enough that the defense needs to be a speed bump.
Yeah.
Just so it's not the Pennsylvania Turnpike drive-through lane.
Yeah, up and down. Yeah, sure.
So as long as you're a speed bump, you could. But here's the bigger thing. I think at Ole Miss, he can be if he's 11-2, they're ecstatic. Okay,
yes, that's a championship year in their eyes.
And most schools would be, but I'm getting at is if you're 11-2 at some of the blue blood programs, they might be like, okay, yeah, you had a nice year, but nobody's building a statue for you unless there's hardware that comes with that 11-2.
Yes, of course, and Florida would definitely be one of those places.
Yeah,
we've seen what they've done with coaches there.
Yeah, look at if he goes 10-3 at Ole Miss this year, even though they're ranked highly, nobody's going to want to kick him out. I mean, if he's 9-3 in the regular season, loses to some of the big boys, wins a bowl game, they'll say, "Oh, we didn't reach expectations," but it's a 10-win season. We're Ole Miss. We're happy.
Lane Kiffin is Mike Leach to me because on top of the exciting offense, he is also entertaining. Partly in his interviews, but his social media presence is entertaining, and he's unique in that way. And I think he brings a certain something to certain kind of programs. But like you said, if you're blue blood, and if you've had a championship or two in the recent past 20, 30 years, it doesn't fly there.
No, and the problem for Lane Kiffin is what you just said was where I was going next. At Ole Miss, and this isn't me. Listen, I enjoy watching the Ole Miss games, so don't take it that way. But at Ole Miss, when he goes out and he tweaks some people, it's funny. He's on social media. Yeah, it's funny. Okay, you don't want your coach at Florida the week before the Georgia game stirring the pot with Georgia. They don't need any extra motivation.
Oh no, absolutely. He'll quickly get called a clown, and he better win that game if he goes and twists some nipples.
Yeah, I mean, people he was the coach at USC, the tarmac game. Unfortunately for Lane back then, that was right at the beginning of near the beginning of his career. He had left the Raiders. They were on probation. So he was able to get away with some stuff in that the expectations were lower. He won. He had a 10-win year the one year when they were banned from a bowl, got ranked 6th in the country. And he still got fired because, again, at a program like that, you don't want the coach tweaking Notre Dame the week before the Notre Dame
No,
game.
Not at all. And, perhaps he would change in that position, but I doubt it.
No, I think he's good for college football, so don't misunderstand. I think Lane Kiffin is in a great spot. I mean, he can do damage at Ole Miss. He certainly has the facilities, and there's some money down that old deep south that, they support Ole Miss football, and that's the school in Mississippi. So he can do some stuff there, but he's not like with the bright lights of a Florida, a Georgia, an Alabama. I think he's in a good spot. Where I could see him too? You might think I'm crazy, like a Texas A&M.
Sure. They don't have national titles. And, they need to compete.
Yeah.
They need to make some kind of noise, but
yeah, and I think he could do some stuff at A&M and be just fine there. But
he could be a Texas agitator. He could do that.
Oh yes, and it would go over well when they actually won the games. It'd be like, hey, and now we're gonna have some fun because we're playing Texas again, and Lane's agitated.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so I'm with you on that.
Okay, we got another topic here that we have to hit because today, by the way, folks, it's the off season, right? So I'm going to interview Chad at the end of the show because I've got some questions for him as a former player, as a current coach. So we're going to have a little fun. But before we get there, a couple shows, Chad rants, and one of his big rants, and by the way, I say that with all due respect because you nailed this.
Mm.
The NFL, there's some top talk now of a salary cap for a position, and that position would be the quarterback position. Because
I'm shocked.
Yes.
I can't believe it.
Some of the accountants, I guess, and CFOs in the NFL must have looked at their books one day and said, hey, do you guys realize, this one guy's, taking up over 20% of the salary?
Hey, well, I'm all for capitalism, especially, in sports and stuff like that, because the game's being grown and all that good stuff. I'm all for that. I don't want people to think that I'm not. However, what we're churning out for quarterbacks has gotten ridiculous. And where my eyebrows really perked up, it was in one particular thing that happened this offseason that caused me to really start digging into it. And that's when Justin Simmons got cut from the Denver Broncos. All right. If anyone should have the highest salary, all right, this is not how we think. If anyone should have had the highest salary on that football team, or at least deserve to go down at the end of his career wearing the Denver Bronco colors, it was Justin Simmons. But because all of the money was dumped into a quarterback and then, it didn't work out, whatever the case may be with Russell Wilson, you could not handle Justin Simmons' salary, the de facto leader of the team. And so I started looking into it and said, man, this guy in Cincinnati, we all love him. All right. He wears the fur coat. He was a national treasure for 1 year in college football. And he did take his team to the brink of winning a Super Bowl. Sure. There's production here, but how much money is he making? Really? $55 million? Seriously? $55 million? Well, how much of that? I understand that the salary cap got a big boost this year, but how much of the salary cap is $55 million a year? So I got to looking at it, and for God's sakes, Emil, let's just do it. Math is your thing, right? $55 million out of $255 million, which is the cap, is a 22%, basically.
Basically 22%.
When I'm sitting here looking at it, the quarterback contract, APY, and cap percentage, things that you can, dig into. In 2018, the quarterback APY cap percentage was 18.9%. Somehow, since 2018, it's ballooned to 24.5%. Emil, and we've got a couple more guys coming down the pike. And you know how each guy signing must top the last guy's signing. And we're saying all this because of the recent contract for Trevor Lawrence. Emil, I'm going to just say this on record. Folks can call me crazy. I know he was a number one pick. He was he a number one overall? Was Trevor Lawrence number one overall pick?
I believe he was out of Clemson. Yeah.
I get it. I would not have signed Trevor Lawrence to this contract. I get that he was a number one overall pick. I guess that he's the prototype. I got all that. I wouldn't have done this. You're telling me that for $275 million, I know we go on projections, but I've had this guy for the last 4 years, and all I gotten is one playoff win where I had to come way from behind against a Chargers franchise that's kind of cursed anyway. You're telling me that's what that buys me? Emil, I think going forward, if I can make another prediction, because I nailed this one, and it's going to be interesting to see what kind of salary cap doodahs they come up with, how complicated they want to make this. I simply say, let's cap the amount of money that a single player can make. If you're going to have a hard salary cap, let's put a cap on what a single player should make. I personally think no one player should get more than 15%. They'll probably stop this at around 20% because all these guys have gotten paid already. But I am of the mindset that what you've said before about drafting a quarterback every year, that's what I would be in the business of doing if I was an NFL GM. I've got 7 picks in most years. If I'm a terrible team, somehow I've worked my way into
And
8, 9.
you get compensatory picks if you're a good team and you lose good free agents. So a lot of these teams, that's why you'll see the 49ers have 10 picks, because they'll let guys walk and they'll take an extra 4th rounder or extra 5th rounder.
I would make sure that I have a quarterback developer type on my coaching staff. It could be the head coach, a la Kyle Shanahan, or it could just be my offensive coordinator or my quarterback coach, a guy that develops quarterbacks. And with that, I'm taking a quarterback every year. 1 year it could be a 2nd rounder. If I'm terrible, obviously I'm getting a 1st round guy. Or if I'm a solid franchise like San Francisco 49ers or the Kansas City Chiefs or whatever the case may be, it's a 4th, 5th, maybe even a 6th round, the Brady round, the 6th round. And I have that waiting in the wings in case the contract demands, short of us getting that cap, are out of control. Because if I run into a Trevor Lawrence and you're telling me $275 million is what it's going to take, and it's got to be, what's Lawrence going to make? 55, 57 a year?
He's got 5 and 275, so he's 55 million a year.
If you're telling me that that's
most of it's guaranteed, by the way, a large chunk of it. I mean, like
I think 142 guaranteed at signing.
Yeah.
200 of it might be guaranteed.
Whatever.
It's an absurd amount of money.
He got a Powerball ticket. If he never plays football again,
absolutely,
he hit the Powerball.
And if I run into that, you're telling me as the GM of the Jaguars franchise that's not done anything since Mark Brunell many years ago in the 90s, and this is what it's going to take for me to sign my quarterback. What's been happening with that 4th round guy that we took 2 or 3 years ago? Could we do this? And I'm confident. I've got a Kyle Shanahan, a Sean McVay. We're going to let you walk. That's crazy, but we'll let you walk.
Let me throw a few nuggets out here, because a couple of years ago, it's probably a decade ago, we were doing one of our draft shows, and I said that, and I'm sure somebody listened to it on the other end of that said, this guy is crazy, right? And you didn't think I was, but I'm sure somebody heard this guy. And I said every year, no matter where, depending on I might use a 7th round pick, but I'm going to get a guy on my roster to at least see I'm going to explore what I can do with that guy, because a lot of these kids come out of colleges now even more so developed. So you can, find a diamond in the rough, polish it up. But last year with the national media and in the offseason, the Cowboys got roasted for Trey Lance. You gave up a 4th round pick for Trey Lance. And I honestly didn't think it was crazy, not because I'm a Cowboys fan, because my philosophy is, well, the guy's 23 years old. He was taken 3rd in the draft. He got injured. He didn't play at all in San Francisco. They're a team looking to win, so they didn't have time. They got a guy in there, and he happened to do well. There's nothing that Trey Lance put out there that says he can't play football. Why would I not take that chance and at least see if he really is the 3rd pick in the draft?
Sure, he was a 1st round pick. I got him on 4th round money. Sure, I would do that. And I have a quarterback here already. That's our starter. This guy can develop with no pressure. We'll see what we got. I would definitely do that.
And I mean, you're wondering why the money is the way it is, right? But the NFL is kind of getting. You coached a lot of the 7-on-7, right? So you snap the ball, right? So there's no line play.
Right.
So if we put 4 guys out there, right, and had them stand there, so we made it 11-on-11, but there was no line play. What would I pay the left tackle in that?
Not much.
Okay. Now we're going to have it that you can hit the quarterback, but only from that side. Well, I'm going to pay the left tackle pretty good.
Of course.
What's really, I'm being facetious here, because if you look at what the NFL's done, they've set up a rule book, and the way their sport has developed, in that passing is 60 to 65% of the offense generally. So the edge tackles tend to get paid. The receivers get paid. The tight ends get paid. The quarterback gets paid the most. We don't pay running backs. We try to find, there's a few guards that make really big money, but we try to find guards and centers on the cheap. in the draft. Okay, and on defense, we pay ends because they hit quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
We're dropping our pay now on corners and safeties because they can't touch the receivers. So we're
Right.
getting exactly the game that the NFL has developed, and they're wondering like, wow, why do quarterbacks make all the money? Well, you've set up a rule.
Yeah, they're made a monster, and
Yeah.
they're terrified of the monster that they made. The monster has now climbed out of the basement and it's hanging out in the living room. And to your point, if you pay your quarterback $55 million a year, Emil, well, that's an expensive investment, right? So I've got to do everything. I got to buy insurance for that, right? I've got to now insure this thing. That means my left tackle needs to get paid a crap ton of money. I also need to have this vehicle now that I spent a whole bunch of money on needs to be insured. And then I've got to make sure that vehicle performs. So I've got to spend money on the engine. What's the engine? He's got to have a pass catcher. And that pass catcher needs to make $30 million. And then he needs to have a second. So I'm spending all the money on one particular side, but I don't have enough money.
And wait, you left one thing out. And I've got to tweak it starts to feed itself like regenerative AI. Now I've got to tweak my rules. Well, why do you got to tweak your rules? Well, I can't let the guy get hit that much because if he gets hit when the left tackle fails and he's out, backup quarterback is a guy like me. Okay.
Right, exactly, because I can't afford to have a backup.
Right.
But, you start looking at the defense. Now, as the upholstery in the car, I don't have money for that because I've spent it all on insurance and the performance. So, I might have some cracked upholstery on the inside. The inside doesn't look so great. No one can really see that. But, boy, it sure is important. Comfort in my ride is important. Defense is important. So I think the smarter teams are going to be a little more conservative on the quarterback thing, or they'll have a quarterback and either that's the way he is, a la Brady, that's just the mindset, or they convince him of the mindset to, you don't need to take all the money. It would be really nice in terms of your legacy, after you have somehow figured out how to live life with your $200 million and, get your bills paid. It'd be nice if we had a defense. It'd be nice if we had not only a defensive end, but a defensive tackle and a lockdown corner, or also a safety that can really help us out. And you can win some championships and add some rings to all of the cash that you have in your box at home in your safe. The smart teams.
When does someone come along? And this is a question more so I don't know the answer. Okay, so the NFL has always been like a pendulum, almost like our country, right? Mm-hmm. When our country swings too far right, it comes back this way, the people. Too far left, it's tended to be. Same thing in the NFL, right? The NFL tends to be a copycat league. People exploit different things. So when RG3 came into the league, that the whole RPO stuff started.
Right.
And for a while it worked, and then we put some guys on stretchers, and we're getting a little bit away from that. When does a GM come along and say, listen, the rules are such that this league is soft.
Mm-hmm.
And all the money is tied up in quarterbacks. I'm going to get a pretty good quarterback. I mean, he's not going to be, you can't go have some slap out there, but I'm going to get a guy, I'm going to pay him 30, 35 million. I'm going to build myself a Hogs or the great line of Dallas from the 90s. I'm going to get myself a couple stud running backs, one receiver that I know will catch the ball in big games and get opened. And I'm going back to that style of football. I'm going to build.
Someone will do it. It might take a while. Listen, I've never been more interested for a guy's contract when his time comes up than Brock Purdy. Because I'm seeing what's happening with the contracts, and it's reached the point where the GMs have been vocal about it and put that out there. I don't know if they're serious about it or if they're just trying to put a bug in the ear of some agents. But we may, in fact, end up with some kind of a salary cap for a position. And San Francisco now has to feel Kyle Shanahan's ego, though he has lost a couple of Super Bowls, has to be extremely boosted when he can take a quarterback, a Mr. Irrelevant, and turn him into a guy that goes to a Super Bowl. Much like a lot of these offshoots from the New England Patriots staff, all felt like they could go somewhere else and become NFL Super Bowl winning coaches, and they could take anyone and do it because they had certain guys that were not, physical freaks, and they got it done. I'm wondering if that's going to happen with Kyle Shanahan, and if Brock Purdy's contract demands get out of control, they'll say, "Hey, you can walk." And this guy that we drafted this year, that year down the road, we'll just duplicate what we did with you all over again.
Well,
we'll start some copycatting in this league.
There's a listener out there that's probably saying, Emil, somebody's already doing that. And that would be what I just described, the San Francisco 49ers. They're probably the closest to what I'm describing. He builds his team from the inside out. He's usually got really strong offensive and defensive lines. If you look at their offense, they essentially play with 3 running backs.
Mm-hmm.
Both their receivers are almost running backs. And they have their running back, Christian McCaffrey. Okay.
Sure.
So, I mean, he's as close. He's pretty close to what I'm describing, because what I'm trying to say is I'm looking at this saying I'm going to do – if you're going to go play defense, you're a defensive coordinator, and you're going to play 2 small linebackers, and your base defense is essentially going to be 5 DBs, 2 fast linebackers, and 4 defensive linemen. Well,
we're going to get physical with you.
We're going to get physical with it.
Yeah, we've got Kyle Shanahan doing that. It's got a solid running game. Everyone accentuates the passing that's going on and all the rhythmic, but a lot of what they do is they can get physical with you. All right, we've seen Kittle block. We know McCaffrey can run the football. But, Emil, let's not forget who just entered into this league once again, and that is Jim Harbaugh. You saw what he picked first overall,
Mm-hmm.
all right? They're going to play a physical brand of football. He's going to be successful, because when has Jim Harbaugh not been successful in the game of football in some way, shape, or form? And if he comes into that AFC West and they start giving the Chiefs problems, and they somehow in the next 2-3 years win that AFC West where the mighty Chiefs reside, I think that's going to start the turning around of how people think of the quarterback position.
I'm excited. You know my affinity for
Let's build a complete team.
My affinity for LA sports. So when the Cowboys aren't playing, I'll watch the Rams, and now I'll watch the Chargers, because I like Jim Harbaugh. I like the way he plays. I like seeing that style of football, and I think you're onto something there. I think he will be a guy that does that, and I think you're going to see some people start to realize, hey, maybe there's another way to win, because the geeks are all out there telling you, you got to throw the ball. Running on first down, that's another stat. If you read anymore, they tell you running on first down is a waste.
Yeah, all right, geeks, put your stuff away. Listen, a very successful team in the AFC each and every year, the Baltimore Ravens, who are a physical team that will run the football. Yes, I know their quarterback makes a good amount of money, but that's a physical football team. San Francisco 49ers, physical football team. What did we see the Chiefs do this year? They turned into a physical football team. Now they've gone and loaded up their pass catchers with a bunch of track guys. We're going to see if that has an opposite effect for them this year. But we've got the Chargers coming in. So there might be a turn to physicality in this league. But I'm telling you, we're going to see I really just want to see what happens when Brock Purdy comes to the table. If he tries to get Trevor Lawrence money, they might let that guy walk. I want us to get back into building a whole football team, and it can't all be just one guy. For those folks that have played fantasy sports out there, even when you've tried to put together an NBA roster on any given night, and you decide I'm going to take Joel Embiid or I'm going to take Jason Tatum, and Jason Tatum just is not feeling it that night, and he comes up with 20 points, and because you had to spend all your salary for that given night for your FanDuel and your DraftKings guys out there, and he just didn't feel it that night, you're dead. You're toast. So if Trevor Lawrence goes down at any point this season, if Joe Burrow goes down, because we've seen that, we saw what came in, as these things start to happen, I think the mindset's going to have to change. But I'm interested in seeing what they come
I'm interested in, and then we're going to get to my interview here, because I have some questions for you. I'm interested to see, again, this is me stepping back, more of an NFL fan. I want to see what happens with Dak.
Well, yeah, of course. They're going to. If you think Jerry Jones isn't one of those that's pushing this narrative about we need a cap.
I'll be honest with you. You know how I feel. I separate it all the time. I think Dak is a really good guy. I think he's a nice guy. I think he represents the community well. And I think, generally speaking, he's a good human being. So that said, someone will pay him, and good for him. okay?
Mm.
He's going to get paid. It wouldn't be me.
Yeah, I feel you. I also think secretly they're probably going to wrap up the development of a Trey Lance. But I'm here to tell you, going forward, just prepare yourself for this. If Trevor Lawrence gets $55 million and Joe Burrow, as we said, is making 50 plus, and Jared Goff got all that money, and Kirk Cousins just got way more money than anyone thinks he should get, and Dak has a 13-4 season, and he comes to the table, and Jerry Jones refuses to pay that guy. You already know what's coming, right? The black guy couldn't get the $60 million.
Well, yeah, but somebody will give him that. Here, my take on Dak is this.
But Jerry Jones didn't. You understand? So in the immediate, when he tells him he can walk, just know that's coming.
You could play that card, but I think there's a rationale for it. With Dak, to me, you let him play his year out, right? We already know the market is set. Right now, it's about $55 million, give or take. If you get what you got the last 3 years, like, hey, we had a really good regular season and I got one playoff win, or maybe he gets another playoff win and loses again. If he doesn't get to the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
I think
what warrants the $60 million for you?
He's got to show they've got to be in the NFC Championship game.
Or no $60 million.
He's got to get to a championship.
If they get to the playoffs and they're eliminated in the first round,
or even the second round, if they win a wild card game in that round, if they're not the number one seed, and then they lose again in the division round, without getting to an NFC Championship game, if you're Jerry Jones, it's very easy to say, listen, for $60 million, I'm going to only be a top 8 team every year, because that's what
I get it. The Cowboys go 13-4 this year, eliminated in their first round playoff game. What are you paying Dak? What are you paying him?
I'm not.
So he can walk. Dak says, you know what? I'll go 55.
Time to reset. I'm a different kind of guy.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, I'm a different. See, here's the thing, right?
It's not wild. I mean, look, it's wild to anyone listening out here, but there's no price you're signing him at.
Not without getting to an NFC Championship game. He's been in the league since 2016. This will be his ninth.
So, Emil Calomino, you're telling me on this day, June 20th of 2024, the season for the Dallas Cowboys.
NFC Championship game
or bust.
You've been a top 8 team 3 years in a row.
Producers, rack this right here. Rack it.
3 years in a row, you've been a top 8 team. Your quarterback's going into his 9th season. You can't, I'm not asking you to win the whole thing. I'm asking you to show me you can go from top 8 to top 4. Get me to the Final 4. But if you can't get me to the Final 4 in your 9th season, you want me to pay you for years 10 through 14, $55 to $60 million a year.
Hey, look, football-minded, reasonable. Fan-minded, might be crazy.
I'm one of the more reasonable fans you'll ever know. And I'm telling you.
Until Dak throws a couple sideways passes on Sunday, then the checks roll in.
But I calm down by Monday. Listen, Trey Lance is they're going to play him extensively in the preseason and try to find out. If I'm
a number of reasons, not just salary. Like, what if Dak gets an ankle injury or anything?
You're telling me I'm not talking Zach Wilson. I'm talking about Baker Mayfield. You're telling me with what Dallas has with CeeDee Lamb and Ferguson, who's going to be and probably is in the top 10 tight ends already, okay?
That's it right there, though, Emil. There's nothing else after that. There's nothing else.
But you're telling me he wouldn't put up numbers? He'd put up numbers. Numbers don't mean anything in today's game.
I don't love their offensive roster. It's almost New England Patriots-esque. God forbid if CeeDee Lamb goes down.
Oh,
God forbid.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That might be more terrible than Dak going down.
Although I do think if you look at Dallas, I think their offensive line got better, and I mean that addition by subtraction. I mean, I love Tyron Smith, USC guy, Hall of Famer. When he's on the field, he's great, but he's going to miss a third of the season automatically. I mean, I think they've gotten younger and better up front.
Well, we'll just have to see.
But the point I'm getting at is I'm not paying him unless I see him strap the Cowboys on his back and show me that he is that guy.
We're gonna leave it there, but I just love that on this day in June, You have defined the Dallas Cowboys season to NFC Championship game or bust. That's just the extra little oomph and pressure that I just want to see going into the NFL season. I love it.
Okay,
I love it. What do we got?
listen, we're going to wrap the show up with a little interview. I jotted down 4 questions for you.
Can't wait. To quote the great Bart
3
Scott.
of them are tied to your player coaching experiences, and the last one ties to your wife.
Oh my God!
It's nothing bad. Don't worry. It's football.
I see this.
It,
I see this podcast getting edited. But go ahead.
Football related. Okay, so first of all, when you were at the University of Miami, who was the best player that you ever played against? And it can't be a guy in practice. It has to be from another team. Who was the best player you ever played against?
Best guy I played against, just off the top of my head, is it someone I faced or just someone that was on the other team?
Someone on the other team that you were in a game and you
I played against a Hall of Famer named Derrick Brooks. That was a linebacker for Florida State. You know, the younger crowd might not remember him, but Derrick Brooks is a Hall of Famer and a damn good football player at the time that we played Florida State. So I can say that. So far as who I faced, I lined up in front of Marvin Harrison for a great portion of our game against Syracuse. Got an interception, by the way, against Marvin Harrison. But I would just say probably him in terms of someone I actually had to deal with in the game. But off the top of my head,
like you just said,
at Miami,
yeah,
maybe Derrick Brooks. I faced a guy that I would think is better than that, and a bigger name when I was at Long Beach State. I should have faced him when I was at Miami, but didn't play in the game.
Who was it? Who was that one?
One Marshall Faulk. And at the time I faced him at Long Beach State, nobody knew who the hell he was. You know, San Diego State had a pretty good running back going into the game that we were aware of, a guy by the name of T.C. Wright. But they had some dude named Marshall Faulk from Louisiana. We had no idea. It was a freshman. First game, I want to say. I think I faced Marshall Faulk in his first game. And the guy got in the game and was going nuts on us. I'm like, what's happening here? We came here for the passing attack, and this guy's running crazy on us. And yeah, we had
what's
that.
Like when you were facing him, did you kind of? I mean, obviously you didn't know he was going to be an NFL Hall of Famer, but did you say, okay, this guy's different?
I thought we sucked.
Okay,
that's
the reality is at that point you weren't like, oh, this guy's just different. He's going to be something. You're like, we just suck.
It wasn't until you watched the film.
Right.
When you're in the game and you're running around, you're not seeing everything, right? And a lot of what we did that year was man-to-man coverage. I'm in press coverage, and I'm running down the field, and I'm hearing the crowd, and I turn my head around, and this dude's running again, this number 28 running. So I didn't see him get the ball. I didn't see what he did at the line of scrimmage. I just know he's through the line of scrimmage again, and I got to go chase this guy, turn around and make a tackle on this guy 15, 20 yards down the field. So I don't really know exactly what's happening. I just know he keeps ripping these runs off on us. And then when I went and watched the film, at the time of the game, man, we lost handily. I think it was 36-17. I just think we suck. We're not very good. You know, I had those feelings going into the season. We were not very good in certain positions. So at the time, I think we suck. Then I go and watch the film. I'm like, well, yeah, we kind of suck, but look at this guy after he got the ball. I was like, this guy is going to be good. To say that I thought he would be a Heisman Trophy guy, not at that time. He had developed into that by the time I got to Miami. We played them, but he was hurt and didn't play the game. It was him and Gino Torretta, if you remember. Right. For the Heisman Trophy. He didn't play in that very key game, and that's how Gino really.
But on the sidelines at Miami, where you weren't necessarily playing against him, you watched Derrick Brooks and said, "Okay, this guy's different."
You just knew it. His name was everywhere. You peeked a little bit at their film on defense just to see some things, and I always looked at Florida State cornerbacks. Had a lot of respect for them, what they did in the secondary. So there were some things you would pull from what they're doing there and maybe add it to your game if you could. But I could see Derrick Brooks making a ton of plays on a team full of great players. That was obvious. So off the top of my head, Yes, I would say him. We lost to Alabama. They had a ton of guys, but no one like a Derrick Brooks at Alabama.
Okay, that's a great answer. And then this next question is going to put you on the spot a little. And
Sure.
I'm not going to let you slither off.
Have at it.
Who was the most talented player? Let's say the best now necessarily. You can define talented however you want. That you ever coached or trained.
Most talented player I ever coached or trained. All right, tell my two boys. All right, love them to death. Coached both of them in high school, obviously. And I would not name them in anything like this because, this guy's daddy ball. I had a linebacker at a university school named Skai Moore who went on to go to South Carolina. Miami tried to swoop in on signing day. That's probably a story for another time. But that guy just made plays all over the place. And right before I became the defensive coordinator at the university school, he was a defensive end. And I realized that that's not where he's, going to make his hay. He's probably not, that's not where he's going to, make the most plays for us. So I was just going to have him be a stand-up linebacker and kind of cover and stuff like that. And he just came to me one day and calmly said, Coach, I think I want to be in the box. I think I can make more plays in the box. So presentation's everything to me, and he was confident. So I had him do that. Move them inside the linebacker, and Emil, that kid just made plays from sideline to sideline, and he would just make interceptions. We went and played a team. They threw an interception. He picked the pass off, ran it back a good amount of yards. We had a flag on the play, nullified the interception. 2 plays later, he picked it off again. And he was just a guy like that. He went on to South Carolina. I think he's still their all-time leader in interceptions at the linebacker position, maybe overall. Had a shit ton of them. Things didn't work out for him at the next level in the league, and I felt pretty sure that he would, but you never know what happens at the next level. But as talented a player as I had coached, and we had a number of them. If you think about if you think about the resume, if also I would say a guy like Pat Surtain.
I appreciate your answer because you didn't go for the easy low-hanging fruit. You could have just said, well, I thought you were going to actually, when I crafted the question, I thought you were going to say Pat Surtain.
Yeah, and I think the only thing that really stops me from doing that, aside from the greatness that was Skai Moore, is that I just saw Skai from 8th grade, a guy that I one day, as an assistant coach at 8th grade, went off on him because I saw a kid with potential that just wasn't doing anything. And I said, "No, are you sure you want to play football, man? Like, why are you even out here?" He went from that to this guy was just making plays all over the damn place. I mean, Pat Surtain would have been an easy answer because look at what he's doing now. Look at what he's blossomed into. I've also had the pleasure of training him since he's gone into the league, but that would have been a real easy answer. Skai Moore is probably I'd give a little edge to.
Good. Okay. Now this one really gonna make you dial up. Who was the funniest player that you ever played with or against?
Warren Sapp, easily. Warren Sapp, man, we've had him on the show. Easily, Warren Sapp.
Really? He's like that all the time. He's just like a walking.
He's like that. He's like that all the time. A funny guy to be around. I'll tell you another funny guy that we had. That he was a linebacker on our team. Hilarious. Unfortunately, passed away. Tragic murder after I left the University of Miami. But a guy by the name of Marlon Barnes, super hilarious guy. I do remember us being in a game. He'd come into the game late. He was a younger guy when I was there, and I forget who it was. They ran a ball off tackle, and man, when I tell you, all 11 dudes hit this running back on the play, picked him up after the whistle, slammed him on his head. And Marlon gets up and said, "Well, damn, we won that down there, didn't we, baby?" And we all just started cracking up. He was a really hilarious guy. In terms of guys I've coached, Tyson Campbell, one of the funniest guys. He's a cornerback for Jacksonville Jaguars. That guy was he had a joke a minute. And still is a.
It's always fun to be around people like that. That's why I asked
they keep it light, but you have fun times with Sapp. He's funny. You get the jokes. But to be fair, it's tough to pick a guy in the University of Miami I would say our entire secondary group, when I was there, at least my first year, room full of comedians. But I can't pick just one guy in there.
You know, we did have Sap on the show for a whole season one year, and he is a pretty funny guy.
Yeah, both in what he says and what he did. Hilarious.
Oh, yeah. Now, here's the final one. This is where we incorporate your wife. So Carmen comes to you at the end of the football season and says, Chad, you're watching way too much football, and we're turning over a new leaf on January 1st. At least to start the year we are. We need more time on Netflix and Amazon Prime.
Wow.
So, as this season closes out, I know it's December 31st. You can only watch one football game until next September.
One game?
And here's your choices. You can either, both games, so we have context, are 2.5-point spreads. So they're tight ball games.
Okay.
And we've got two blue blood programs in the games. Either the Super Bowl, when I say blue bloods, traditional powers, or two blue blood college teams. And both games are 2.5-point spreads. They're supposed to be tight. We're not getting Georgia TCU here. You can only watch one of them. You've got 3 hours of football from January 1st until the following season starts. You're allowed to watch.
Are you like boiling my choices down here to a regular season college football game potentially, or a Super Bowl game?
No, the college football national championship game or the Super Bowl.
Emil, off the top of my head, it's the college football national championship game.
In that scenario.
Yeah, it's the college football national championship game. I'd rather just be honest. I have always been a maybe bigger college football fan than an NFL football fan. Love both, even though I've, taken my shots at both over the last few years because of things that have changed. I've always been a big college football fan, and I'll even go so far as to say, Emil, that I think my bigger goal as a player when I was in high school and then when I first entered college was to play big-time college football. The goal wasn't necessarily in that beginning, in those early stages, to be an NFL football player. But it was more of, I want to play big-time college football, and I realized that dream, that goal, when I ended up getting to the University of Miami. I wasn't there, obviously, at Long Beach State.
No.
It was anything but that. But when I went from Long Beach State to the University of Miami, I'd accomplished a goal I'd had for a long time, and it's just always been my love for college football. I'm a big NFL fan, but if you're giving me that choice, it's whatever the matchup may be for me in that scenario. Whatever team, a big-time college football game in the championship, 3-point spread, or a Super Bowl 3-point spread, gun to my head, probably that college football game.
I didn't know what you were going to say when I crafted the question. That's kind of where my head was at. And, like you, I've taken shots at both of them. But what really made me ask that is I was thinking about the Super Bowl this past year. And I happened to go to a friend of mine a couple blocks away. We do business together. It was, he played D1 AA in the Ivy League. So he was a good football player. And we had it was a house party. People were there, and I'll be honest with you. I saw a good chunk of the game, but I wasn't glued to the TV set. And the thing that dawned on me watching the Super Bowl this past year, I found it to be a bit of a snooze fest, the game, until the fourth quarter. And I felt like the game has now become secondary to everything around the Super Bowl, if I'm making any sense. I felt like...
Yes, there's a ton of distractions.
Yes.
A ton of distractions from the actual meat and potatoes of the football game. I get that.
Yes, the halftime show, the lead up to the game. I felt like everything was bigger than the game itself, where I think when you get two big teams in college football, if Texas, I'm just picking teams, in Ohio State, whoever, it doesn't have to be my team, are playing.
It's about the game. Everything leads
to
the game. I think what the NFL has done, and it's, from a business standpoint, I don't know if that we could criticize them. They've done everything in their power to cater to those who would not otherwise watch NFL football. All of the human interest stories, the periphery programs that they set up where people debate political issues having to do with football players. They've done everything that they can to snatch the people from Bravo Channel, from HGTV, to snatch them from the Food Network and pull them into this room. I always think of cable TV as a bunch of rooms in a hotel, and each channel is trying to bring everyone into the party that's in their room. Some go harder at it than others, and the NFL has gone super hard in doing that and trying to grab all the people out of the Bravo and the HGTV hotel room and bring them into the party in their room. And they know that you and I, the hardcore fans, we're not going to leave out of that room. We're going to stay there. We're going to grumble. But we're going to sit there and eat the potato chips, and we're going to drink the soda.
If they have a room with a lot of cocaine in it, Charlie Sheen ain't leaving.
Right. You know, we're going to grumble and complain, but we're not going to leave. So they take us for granted. We'll sit there and drink our soda and eat our chips while they go feed these other people wine and champagne to keep them in the room. And we'll be pissed about it, but we're going to stay in that room. And so that's what we end up getting. But you can distract us. We can walk down the hall and go jump and watch a college football.
It's a great analogy you just used. I'm going to remember that because that actually is a great way to explain it. And I think you nailed my feeling on both sports completely. The one thing I would add, tying back to before we wrap up, and this question, it kind of ties everything in a knot for me, back to our earlier conversation about salary caps. Anybody who's tuning in late here, you want to go back to the beginning of the show. Before the beginning, we talked about the salary cap on quarterbacks. The misnomer in the NFL, I believe, is that the salary cap creates competitive parity. It really doesn't. The salary cap is to keep owners in check for themselves as a business model, because they know that the minute a guy like a Jerry Jones or Stan Kroenke in LA said, damn it, I don't care, I'm spending $600 million this year. Well, they'd be forced to do that too.
Of course. So, and we're seeing it again with the quarterbacks.
So this is all the salary. If you look at the NFL, and I did this one show, there's been, in the last 20 years, less different champions in the NFL than Major League Baseball.
Yeah. Let's just be honest, Emil. I'm sure you'll agree with me on this. In any society, any entity, any industry, the more rules you put in place, the more you are going to shove the success into a smaller group of people. When you open the borders and leave everything wide open, you can do more. You can do whatever. You open up more of a chance that someone out of nowhere comes in and does it. If college football just relaxed the rules and said, you guys can pay whoever, whatever, I guarantee you some team we have never, ever thought about, a Kansas State or someone out of the corner of college football would come in there somehow and win the championship.
Your point is well taken. Look at business. The internet started, it didn't start, but went widespread, right, in the late 90s. Okay, and it was the Wild West, right? People were popping up all over the place. People became multimillionaires, billionaires. Then it started getting funneled. Okay?
Yep.
Funnel. Now the internet's a very controlled space with some big companies controlling just what was the Wild West.
Yeah, the less rules, the more unpredictable the outcomes. The more rules, the more predictable the outcomes, because guys, certain people are just going to have the power to take the rules and work them in their favor.
Brains and the resources. You'll get somebody who has the brains and the resources, and compared to the person before who just had the brains but not the resources, when it was unpredictable, the brains could win out. Once you make it predictable, then the resources come in, and it's like, hey, Alabama's really smart, and they got a lot of money. I mean,
yeah, and that's why I don't get people who hate on Nick Saban about some of the things that he said when the rules came up, or that, oh, he's out now because of these rules that they put in place. Look, let me tell you something, folks. That guy was just better than everybody at everything. And so when you guys put in rules, he says, are you guys sure? Because I already have analyzed this rule because I'm that kind of guy. I've read everything. And I've already see how we are going to take advantage of this and run wild with it. And before you guys get pissed off, I'm going to ask you, are you sure that this is what you guys want to do. Oh, you are? Okay, cool. Watch this. And that's just the way that it is.
And see, this is how the two chumps roll. We went from your wife not letting you watch football to ending the show with Nick Saban is the best college football coach
Ever. With the rules, without the rules, whatever, however you want to slice it up. Okay, however you want to slice it up. But hey, we appreciate you guys tuning in and spending the time here with us. The Two Chumps Football Podcast. Something we said today is profound and will live on forever. Something like that happens just about every show. But again, it's the off season, so you're here with us, and there's no telling what we'll have to pull up in future shows. So until next time, that's Emil Calomino. I'm Chad Wilson. Thanks for listening to the Two Chumps Football Podcast. We'll see you guys next time.
See you later.